Look closely at the construction of this late 19th century exhibition hall. The sheer volume enclosed beneath that arched iron and glass roof defies the known engineering limits of the era it was supposedly built in. Entire complexes emerged seemingly overnight. Instead of temporary fairgrounds, these sites featured sprawling canal systems, heavy classical columns, and massive domes that mirrored the footprint of an imperial capital. Moving inside, the sheer scale only increases. We are told these were temporary manufacturers' halls, yet they boast endless colonnades and perfectly proportioned statuary carved with absolute precision. Then there is a sudden shift. Heavily fortified commercial masonry structures in the centers of major cities began to disappear. Buildings like this one were slated for demolition shortly after they were photographed. When we look at the surviving photographic record across different continents, a clear pattern emerges. These are cohesive, globally consistent masterpieces that have been methodically erased from our cities and removed from the public record. The official timeline asks us to believe that this colossal, worldwide building boom occurred entirely within the mid to late 1800s. Yet the historical record of the labor force tells a different story. The men captured in photographs at these sites are leaning on wooden wheelbarrows, resting in the dirt next to primitive wooden shacks, equipped only with hand tools. The structures themselves do not match human biology. We see 20-foot-high doors and massive corridor widths that serve no practical purpose for the people who supposedly laid the bricks. This animated diagram compares the total tonnage of cut stone required for a typical exhibition hall against the maximum payload and transit speed of the horse-drawn carts available at the time. The math simply fails. The required supply chain could not exist without modern rail networks and combustion engines. The sheer volume of material moved and the speed of assembly breaks the boundaries of 19th century logistics. The laborers in these photographs did not build these structures. The era we call the Industrial Revolution functioned as a period of global salvage. It was a time of excavating and repurposing the ruins of a lost civilization. You can see the physical seams of this transition. Look at the lower retaining walls along the riverbank. Heavy, precise, cyclopean stone blocks. Built directly on top of them are newer, much rougher brick structures and industrial smokestacks. This repurposing is highly visible at street level. Across the globe, we find buildings where the original ground floor architecture, complete with full-size doors and arched windows, plunges directly into the modern pavement. When modern crews dig deep below the street, they do not find rough foundations. They uncover fully finished, massive stone sublevels extending far beneath the accepted grade. The presence of finished architectural details beneath tons of intentional fill suggests a purposeful isolation. By burying these primary interface layers, the new inhabitants effectively executed a deactivation protocol, severing the structure's connection to its original subterranean power source. The intricate spires, metal finials, and heavy domes serve a specific operational purpose. These geometric shapes operated as resonant anchors, massive tuning forks designed to capture, modulate, and harness atmospheric or electromagnetic energy. Even the landscaping served the system. Massive water features were placed in precise alignment with the architecture to act as ultra-reflective amplifiers, bouncing specific frequencies back toward the grid. So what happened to the rest of the grid? A theory known as meltology suggests an ancient heat event passed over the Earth. Under extreme temperatures, classical stone structures superheated, slumping and cooling into deformed shapes we now classify as natural mountains or primitive cave dwellings. We are not admiring the artistic choices of our recent ancestors. We are living inside the skeletal hardware of a highly advanced, deactivated global machine. Moving into the 20th century, the treatment of these structures shifted from salvage to destruction. Buildings designed to be invincible were systematically targeted for rapid demolition. A high number of these massive structures were destroyed by sudden, catastrophic fires. The historical record asks us to believe that infernos somehow leveled entire city blocks constructed completely out of non-combustible stone, iron, and glass. When fire was not an option, urban renewal and commercial development stepped in. Wrecking balls were brought in to violently strip away the heavy masonry and expose the internal steel framing of buildings that could have stood for centuries. Scrubbing the physical landscape of these anomalies allows for a total rewrite of the record. This coordinated erasure is the work of the narrative editors, the managers responsible for aligning our physical reality with the primitive, linear timeline taught today. These restoration and demolition projects are active containment protocols. By tearing down the core nodes of the old grid, the editors ensure the underlying technology remains permanently inaccessible and misunderstood. Despite centuries of targeted erasure, the editors could not hide everything. Massive command nodes of this grid still stand in plain sight, dominating the landscape with vast footprints and colossal domes. These sites are currently occupied by our governments and institutions, treated as passive museums of classical art. But the architecture reveals they are dormant pieces of technological hardware waiting to be recognized. You can audit this in your own city. Look for the massive, out-of-place masonry, the buried basement windows, and the oversized doors that do not match the scale of the people using them. By identifying these architectural anomalies, we stop accepting the edited version of history. We begin mapping the surviving hardware, taking the first step to bypass the editors and reclaim a stolen legacy.